Master's discussion. Comparative analysis of electricity consumption at home through a Schiller score perspective. 현웅초이 Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, The Graduate School 성균관 University. Abstract. Title of abstract. Machine learning is a modern field that has emerged as a new tool for data analytics in a distributed computing environment. There are several aspects at which machine learning has improved the processing capacity along with the effectiveness of analysis. In this paper, the electrical usage of the home is analyzed through a k-means clustering algorithm for obtaining the optimal home usage electrical data point. The Davis-Bordin index and Schiller score finds the detailed optimal number of clusters in the k-means algorithm and present the application scenario of the machine learning clustering analytics. Machine learning is a state-of-the-art sub-project of the artificial intelligence that is evolved for finding large-scale intelligent analytics in the distributed computing environment. In this paper, we performed comparative analytics on two datasets collected for the electrical usage of the home based on the k-means clustering algorithm using comparison to Schiller score with the ratio 8:1 dataset. The performance evaluation shows that the comparison index is a similar number of Schiller score even if the datasets are smaller than before. Machine learning, k-means clustering. Big data analytics has simplified the complexity of a large-scale dataset. Processing is a parallel distributed environment. Chapter 1, Introduction. Machine learning is an analyzing mechanism that fetches and identifies the matching patterns from existing datasets for your result formations. This paper discusses comparative analytics related to unsupervised learning algorithms, at which we compare the k-means clustering result with the ratio of half dataset to Schiller score result. We performed the analysis and came to a conclusion. The Davis-Bordin index is not working smoothly in the scikit-learn library, so performed a check analysis for Kern-Scarabee index and the Schiller score along with the Davis-Bordin index and compared the result to each of them, so to learn that when we reduce the dataset out to a mentioned proportion, the resultant dataset shows a half score than the traditional data score. Chapter 2, Overview and Motivation. In real life, household power consumption, diverse analytics and electrical transformer transmission power can measure the period can estimate it. And each data using electrical consumption, it can be used for progressive taxation, regional-to-regional demand, forecasting, maintenance of power plant and facilities in the gas company or car company can estimate about the consumption for the via k-means algorithms and also can estimate via k-means algorithms and also can estimate about the gas consumption rate to via k-means clustering and index. Chapter 3, Paper 1 Content. Introduction. Machine learning is a subject of artificial intelligence that is used to develop algorithms and techniques for enabling the computer to run. It is used to train the computer for various aspects such as distinguishing whether emails received are spam or not, data classification application, association rule identification, and character recognition. Machine learning includes a series of processes in which computer look up for similar patterns, generate a novel classification system, data analytics, and producing meaningful results. It is a kind of artificial intelligence that can be predicted based on the result. If it is supported only by analytics algorithms, machine learning is a step-by-step evolution process that leads from the big data analytics to predict future actions toward making decisions on its own through past run result. The key issues for processing a successful prediction model remains to be within increasing the probability and reducing the error, and the said problems are resolved through enabling numerous iterative learnings. At the heart of the machine learning are representation and generalization. Whether expression is an evaluation of the data and generalization is a processing of future data. Unsupervised learning is a type of machine learning that is used primarily to determine how data is organized. Unlike supervised learning or reinforcement learning, this method does not give a target value for input values. Autonomous learning is closely related to the density estimation of statistics. This autonomous learning can summarize and describe the main characteristics of the data. An example of autonomous learning is clustering. In this paper, we use Cambridge algorithms to measure the optimal number of clusters based on the Kranz-Karabach index and Schuler-Score Davis-Borders index, and then apply it to household electricity consumption analysis. Machine learning. Machine learning is like data mining, but it is different predicting data based on the learning attribute, mainly through training data. In addition to the three techniques, unsupervised learning, or reinforcement learning, various types of machine learning techniques, such as semi-supervised learning and deep learning algorithms, are developed and has been used. Clustering. Clustering is a method of data mining by defining a cluster of data clones, considering the characteristics of given data and finding representative points that can represent the data group. A cluster is a group of data with similar characteristics. If the characteristics of data are different, they must belong to different clusters. It is the main task of explanatory data mining and common techniques for statistical data analysis used in many fields, including pattern recognition, information retrieval, machine learning, and computer graphics. Maximizing inter-cluster variance. Maximizing the inner cluster variance. Note, however, that clustering should be distinguished from classification. Clustering is unsupervised learning without correct answers. In other words, we group similar objects without group information of each object. Classification, on the other hand, is supervised learning when you carry out classification task. You will learn to predict the dependent variable with the independent variable X of the data. Community feasibility assessment. Since clustering tasks are not correct, they cannot be evaluated as indicators, such as simple accuracy, as in a typical machine learning algorithms. As you can see the example below, it is not easy to find the optimal number of clusters without the correct answers. Cluster analysis itself is not one specific algorithm, but a general task to be solved. It can be achieved by the various algorithms that differ significantly in their understanding of what constitutes a cluster and how to efficiently find them. Popular notion of the clusters includes a group with a small distance between cluster members, dense area of the space. Scikit-learn, in general, a learning problem considers a set of n samples of data and then tries to predict the properties of unknown data. If each sample is more than single number, for instance, a multi-dimensional entry, it is said to have several attributes or features. Supervised learning, in which the data comes with additional attributes that we want to predict these problems, can be either classification, sample belong to two or more classes, and we want to learn from already labeled data on how to predict the class of unlabeled data. An example of classification problem would be handwritten digit recognition, in which the aim is to assign each input vector to one of the finite number of discrete categories. Another way to think of classification is the discrete, opposite to continuous, form of supervised learning where one has limited number of categories, and for each of the n samples provided, one input to try to label them with the correct categories of class. Scikit-learn is a machine learning platform in the middle range of superficial broad Python. Module this package high-level language cannot easily high-level documentation and proper API is suggested. Using BSD license as academic or commercially used. Source code documentation is downloaded from the website. Supervised learning and unsupervised learning is the main problems inserted in scikit-learn generalized models, linear quadratic requirement analysis, kernel rigid regressions, support vector machine, stochastic gradient descent model solution also inserted in the scikit-learn. Proposed approach. K-means algorithms is one of the clustering methods for divided. Divided is giving the data among the main partitions. For example, receive data object and divided data is input data K. Data each group consisting of cluster below equation is a K-means algorithms when cluster consists of algorithms using cost function used. In other words, one of the data object divided by the K group, currently divided dissimilarly with deducting the cost function about it. And from the theory, each object similarly increase. Different group similarity will decrease. K-means algorithms in each centroid and each in groups data object times summations. From this function result the data object group updated clustering progressed. How to be where to be clustering in a way Karin-Skarabaj index, Davis-Borden index, Dunn index, serial score in this paper, evaluate via Karin-Skarabaj index and serial score evaluated. From Karin-Skarabaj index SI, the cluster distributed average and this cluster distributed ratio will give it to you. For this, BK is the distributed matrix from each group, WK is the cluster distributed defined. N is the number of data in CQ data group in CQ. CQ is the cluster, Q centroid, EC is the East centroid, NQ is the number of data number in cluster Q. Serial score is the easy way to in data each data cluster in the data's definition. On each data not clustered inner and data definition. BI serial score SI is equal calculated. From this calculator, SI is equal to the function. SI is close to 1 is the data, 1 is the collected clusters to each thing. Close to -1 cannot distribute the cluster is distributed. From this paper, machine using the machine learning library, scikit-learn is a household power consumption clustering. Household power consumption from the dataset download from the University of California Irvine Machine Learning Data Repository. And then use it. This dataset via delimiter is divided. Global active power, global reactive power voltage, global intensity is divided. Global active power, global reactive power, XY axis experimented. Python library is Anaconda 3 K-means algorithm key point is using data K clusters, reducing cluster distance. K-means algorithms input data, put the labels. Figure 1 is the before check of Karin-Skarabaj index, and the serial score execute K-means algorithms result. Figure 1 to figure 11 are APA1 dataset, K-means clustering result for household power consumption from UC Irvine repository, and reduce the dataset APA1 times from the original UCI machine learning data repository. After reduce each cluster distance, calculate each cluster Karin-Skarabaj index. Increasing cluster Karin-Skarabaj index will decrease with a K ratio is to low estimate K. This cluster partition will one more or net electric consumption rate is very important. This one is the most important fact. Figure 11, serial score according to change of cluster number. Equal with the Karin-Skarabaj index estimation, serial score. Calculate the serial score, the cluster will increase, serial score will decrease with K distributed. A low factor with optimal K represented. From K-means algorithms calculate the proper cluster, thing is very important. From the data estimate serial score, the result is K-7. Each cluster centroid data prices. Serial score is 0.799 is the optimal score. From the former Karin-Skarabaj index result, 560.73999 is the optimal result. Using the K-means clustering algorithm, the fact is figure 11. From this K-means algorithm, cluster 7, each group centroid and each centroid distance will be optimal value. From this result, each centroid can divide it. Household power consumption rate via clustering. Davis-Borden index. If the ground truth levels are not known, the Davis-Borden index scikit-learn matrix Davis-Borden, then the Davis-Borden index is defined as the 0 is the lowest score possible. Score value is closer to 0 indicated a better partition. But the problem is this algorithm does not attach it in the scikit-learn library and only explain it in the documentation page but cannot experiment easily. Related work. Machine learning is a sub-project of artificial intelligence that is used to develop algorithms and techniques for enabling the computer to run. It is used to train the computer for various aspects such as distinguish whether emails received are spam or not, data classification application, association rule, identification, and character recognition. Machine learning includes a series of processes in which a computer looks up for similar patterns, generate a novel classification system, data analytics, and in producing meaningful results. It is a kind of artificial intelligence that can be predicted based on the result if it is supported only by analytics algorithms. Machine learning is a step-by-step evolution process that leads from the big data analytics to predict feature actions toward making decisions on its own through a past-learned result. The key issues for processing successfully prediction model remains to be within increasing the probability and reducing the error, and the said problems are resolved through enabling numerous iterative learnings. At the heart of machine learning are representation and generalization. Whether expression is an evaluation of data, generalization is the processing of future data. Unsupervised learning is a various type of machine learning is that used primarily to determine how data is organized. Unlike unsupervised learning or reinforcement learning, this method does not give a target value for input values. Autonomous learning is closely related to the density estimation of statistics. This autonomous learning can summarize and describe the main characteristics of the data. An example of the autonomous learning is clustering. In this paper, we use K-means clustering algorithm to measure the optimal number of clusters based on the current Comparative index, silhouette score, Davis burden index, and then apply it to household electricity consumption analysis. Summary. From this paper, household power consumption via K-means clustering use a library which is Scikit-learn Anaconda 3 open source personally can easily follow it, and because using BSC license to real world don't have really difficulties to do that. Not only K-means algorithms, PC engine algorithms, but also SVM algorithms, etc. Other machine learning algorithms clustering can also do it. From this result, in real life, household consumption diverse analytics and the electricity transformer transmission power can manage period can estimate it, and each data using electricity consumption it can be used for progressive taxation, regional to regional demand forecasting, maintenance of power plant and facilities can do it. In the gas company estimate via K-means clustering K-means algorithms and also can estimate the gas consumption rate to via K-means clustering index. Content introduction. Machine learning is an analyzing mechanism that fetches and identifies the matching patterns from existing datasets for your result formations. This paper discusses comparative analytics related to unsupervised learning algorithms, in which you compare the K-means clustering result with a ratio of half dataset silhouette score result. We perform analysis and came to a conclusion that Davis burden index is not working smoothly in the Scikit-learn. So performed a check analysis for current Comparative index and silhouette score along with the Davis burden index and compared result to each of them. So to learn that when we reduce the dataset to a mentioned proportion, the result dataset shows half score than the traditional dataset score. Related work. Machine learning is a field of artificial intelligence that is used to develop algorithms and techniques that can enable computer to run. It is used to train the computer to distinguish whether emails received are spam or not, and there are various applications such as data classification, associated role identification, and character recognition, which comply to standard machine learning perspectives. It includes a series of processes in which a computer finds its own patterns, creates a new classification system, analyze the data, and produce meaningful results. The successful prediction occurs with the increase in the probability and decrease in the error issues. Machine learning enables or to sort out of the issues with various iterative learning. Among them, supervised learning is highly related to summarizing the learning method for reinforcement mechanisms. Clustering is a process of mining the dataset by defining a cluster of data that consider the characteristics of input and finds a representative method to point out the data groups. In this way, a cluster is a group of relevant data elements with similar characteristics. If the functions are not same, the ingredients belong to contrast clusters. Clustering is unsupervised learning without accuracy in answers. In the same way, the objects having the same information are grouped together for similar elements. However, the classification is a way related to supervised learning. When you perform classification operations, the system will learn to predict the dependent variables with the independent variables of the data. Scikit-learn is a machine learning platform in the middle range of superficial broad Python module. This package high-level language can also easily handle documentation and proper API suggested. Using BSD license as academic or commercially use it. Source course documentation is downloaded from the website. Supervised learning and supervised learning is many problems. It is inserted in Scikit-learn, generalized models, linear quadratic decrement analysis, Conolidge regression, support vector machine, stochastic gradient descent model. Solution also inserted in a Scikit-learn. Methodology. Cambridge algorithms is one of the clustering methods for divided giving the data among the many partitions. For example, receive data object and divided data input data divides K. Data each group consisting of cluster below equation is the Cambridge algorithms when cluster consists of algorithms using cost function use it. In other words, one of the data object divided by the K group. Currently, the divided similarly, dissimilarly with reducing the cost function about it, and from the theory, each object similarly increase. Different group similarity will decrease. Cambridge algorithms in each centroid in each group data object times summations. From this function result the data object group updated clustering progressed. Serial score is easy way to in data each data cluster in data's definition and each data is not clustered inner and data definition. BI serial score is equal to calculate that from this calculate is equal to that function. SI is close to 1 is the data I is the correct clustering to each thing. Close to -1 cannot distributed cluster is distributed. From this paper, machine using the machine learning library, Scikit-learn is a household power consumption clustering. Household power consumption from the dataset downloaded from the University of California Irvine Machine Learning Dataset repository and used it. This dataset via delimiter is divided. Global active power, global reactive power, voltage, global intensity divided. Global active power and global reactive power XY axis experimented. Python library is Anaconda 3 Cambridge algorithms key point is using data keep K clusters. Reduce cluster distance. Cambridge algorithms input data put the labels. Figure 1 is the before check current scalable index and serial score execute Cambridge algorithms result. Figure 1 to figure 11 are A1 dataset Cambridge clustering result for household power consumption from UC Irvine repository and reduce the data A1 times from original UCI machine learning data repository. From Cambridge algorithms, calculate the proper cluster C is very important. From the data estimated serial score, the result K equal 7 each cluster centroid and data prices serial score 0.799 is the optimal score. Even if the dataset is so small, but the A1 dataset K equals 7 each cluster centroid and data prices serial score 0.810 is the optimal score. From this Cambridge algorithms, cluster all dataset A1 dataset each group centroid and each centroid distance will be an optimal value. From this result, the dataset is decreased but the Cambridge clustering class vector space. Each optimal cluster is the same situation with before original dataset household power consumption rate via clustering. Summary. From the paper, household power consumption via clustering. Cambridge clustering. Use library which is Scikit-learn. Anaconda 3 open source personally can easily follow it and because using BSD license, real world don't have difficulty to do that. From this result, even if we reduce the dataset A1 but the serial score and all the clustering result is the same as before, but the population will increase, it can show clearer result for the classification and vector space. Large datasets to a small dataset is clear to show to the specific result for the serial score, but the opposite side is not clearly allowed. Because 4-dimensional vector dataset from the experiment reduce the estimated time if we receive a huge dataset from the analysis. Conclusion. His research approach to diverse aspects of Cambridge clustering applications. First time to try to reduce the Cambridge algorithm's time consumption. but next time I try to change my aspect to how to reduce the time from large dataset. The approach is changed. These days, via machine learning algorithms can estimate about when changing the part lifespan from the result. All of the experiment user library scikit-learn are conducted open source. It can easily implement any environment because using BSC license can analyze diverse indexes from the first experiment. From second experiment, if the dataset is huge, needs time to analyze how many centroid is proper k-means cluster at that time can reduce time, compared with the A1 dataset by limiting classification and vector space. From the experiment, reduce the class estimate time if received huge dataset from the analysis.